When Donald Trump arrived in Israel, it wasn't just a state visit, it was a display of power worth billions. Fighter jets circled overhead, armored convoys lined the streets, and the sheer cost of his security stunned everyone watching. And once you see what that billion-dollar escort included, you'll understand why even Israel's leaders stopped to watch. Let's get into it. The spectacle that shocked Israel. Picture this. It's October 13th, 2025, and the skies over Tel Aviv are about to witness something extraordinary. 5 massive C-5 Galaxy cargo planes have already touched down at Ben Gurion Airport 3 days earlier, each one carrying pieces of what can only be described as a rolling fortress. Inside these behemoths, 20 armored vehicles, including 2 identical presidential limousines known as the Beast, each weighing a staggering 20,000 pounds and costing $1.5 million. But this is just the beginning of what would become one of the most talked about security operations in modern diplomatic history. As Air Force One descended toward Israeli airspace, something unprecedented was happening on the ground. Highway 1, Israel's main artery connecting Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, was completely shut down, not for minutes, but for hours. The Israeli media outlet, Ynet, would later describe the scene with a mixture of awe and disbelief, calling it Caesar-level pomp for what was technically supposed to be just a 4-hour stopover. Benjamin Netanyahu's own aides, according to leaked reports from Axios, were blindsided by the full scale of the American motorcade airlift. But why? Why would a supposedly brief visit en route to Egypt for the Gaza Peace Summit require such an overwhelming display of military might and security apparatus? The answer lies in understanding not just the threats facing an American president, but the unique circumstances surrounding Donald Trump's presidency and the volatile powder keg that is the Middle East in 2025. Let's rewind for a moment to understand the context. This wasn't Trump's first rodeo in the region. Just months earlier, in May 2025, during visits to Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the world had already gotten a taste of what Middle Eastern hospitality combined with American security protocols looks like. In Riyadh, 6 Royal Saudi Air Force F-15 fighter jets flanked Air Force One during its final approach, a ceremonial gesture that was captured on video by White House Deputy Chief of Staff Dan Scavino and quickly went viral. In Doha, Qatar, the spectacle was even more elaborate. 8 Qatar Emiri Air Force F-15s escorted the presidential aircraft, with one pilot even managing to photograph Air Force One mid-flight. The motorcade that greeted Trump on Qatari soil was a bizarre fusion of modernity and tradition. Tesla Cybertrucks rolling alongside horsemen and camels, creating images that seemed torn from a science fiction movie set in the Arabian desert. But Israel? Israel was different. This was a victory lap, pure and simple. Trump was arriving to celebrate his administration's brokerage of the Gaza ceasefire and hostage release, a diplomatic achievement he would tout as the historic dawn of a new Middle East in his Knesset address. Just days before his arrival, on October 10, 2025, Hamas had released 7 living hostages and 4 bodies, fulfilling part of the ceasefire agreement. The timing wasn't coincidental. This was Trump's moment to shine, to demonstrate American power and influence in the most visible way possible. The security planning had begun 72 hours in advance, as is standard for presidential visits. But what unfolded was anything but standard. The U.S. Secret Service's Presidential Protection Division coordinated with Israel's Shin Bet and the IDF to create what can only be described as a security bubble of unprecedented proportions. The threat matrix was staggering. Iranian proxies still smarting from previous US actions, Hamas remnants despite the ceasefire, Houthi missile alerts from Yemen, and the general regional instability that has defined the Middle East for decades. FBI intelligence had noted a 500% spike in plots against US officials in the Middle East since January 2025 alone. The numbers tell their own story. Over 1,000 personnel were involved in this operation, 150 Secret Service agents, Department of Defense logistics experts, White House military office aides carrying the infamous nuclear football, a 45-pound briefcase containing launch codes for America's nuclear arsenal, and countless support staff. The cost? Conservative estimates place it between $20 and $50 million for this single trip, though the actual figure likely skews toward the higher end given the complexity and duration of the security preparations. When Trump finally touched down, the visual spectacle was unlike anything Israel had seen before. A massive banner stretched across Tel Aviv's beaches, visible from the proclaimed "Thank you" with Trump's silhouette against the Israeli flag. Red carpets, military bands, and an IDF honor guard greeted him at Ben Gurion Airport. But it was the motorcade that truly captured attention. Unlike the ceremonial fighter jet escorts of the Gulf states, Israel's security concern was purely functional. A full airspace no-fly zone lasting 8 hours, causing massive delays to civilian flights and creating a radar blackout that effectively isolated the president from any potential potential aerial threats. The Israeli crews at Ben Gurion Airport, according to reports from Ynet News, were stunned when they saw the scale of equipment being unloaded from those C-5 Galaxy planes. These weren't just any cargo aircraft. Each C-17 or C-5 Galaxy transport costs approximately $400,000 per flight, and 5 of them had made the journey. Inside were the tools of presidential protection: 2 Beasts, multiple armored Chevrolet Suburbans, communications vehicles bristling with satellite equipment, counter-assault team trucks loaded with heavy weapons, and even specialized ambulances equipped with the president's blood type and hazmat response capabilities. The Roadrunner communications van alone is a technological marvel, costing around $2 million and featuring a distinctive satellite dome that provides secure links for the nuclear football. It can jam enemy signals and maintain communications even in the most hostile electronic warfare environments. The Hammer vehicles, armored Ford F-550 ambulances, were brought specifically to handle hazmat responses, a grim reminder that modern threats include chemical and biological weapons. But perhaps nothing symbolizes the extravagance and necessity of presidential protection quite like the Beast itself. This Cadillac One limousine, which debuted in 2018 under Trump's first term, is an engineering marvel that makes James Bond's gadget-laden vehicles look quaint by comparison. With 8-inch thick armored doors, the limousine is essentially a tank disguised as a luxury car. It features run-flat tires that can continue functioning for 50 miles even after being shot out, night vision cameras, its own oxygen supply in case of chemical attack, and even a refrigerator stocked with the president's blood type. The vehicle weighs as much as a small military vehicle and gets approximately 4 miles per gallon, a fuel efficiency that would make environmentalists weep but is necessary when your car is essentially a mobile bunker. As Trump's motorcade rolled through Tel Aviv toward Jerusalem, Highway 1 remained closed, causing 2-hour delays for ordinary Israelis trying to go about their daily lives. The procession was a study in controlled chaos: police motorcycles clearing the way, the 2 Beasts, one carrying Trump, one serving as a decoy, multiple counter-assault team vehicles with armed agents ready to deploy at a moment's notice, communications vehicles maintaining constant contact with the White House Situation Room thousands of miles away, and trailing vehicles carrying additional security personnel and medical teams. Social media exploded with reactions from Israelis witnessing the spectacle. One viral post on X, formerly Twitter, captured the prevailing sentiment. This was described as a $10 billion flex that made Netanyahu look diminished, highlighting Israel's dependence on American military and economic support. And indeed, the timing was significant. In 2025 alone, U.S. military aid to Israel exceeded $21.7 billion, including $12 billion in arms sales that bypassed normal congressional approval through emergency declarations. The message was clear: when America moves, the world watches, waits, and accommodates. This wasn't just about protecting one man, though. This was about projecting power, demonstrating alliance strength, and sending a message to adversaries near and far that the United States, despite its internal political divisions and challenges, remains a force capable of mobilizing extraordinary resources at a moment's notice. The shock that Israeli leaders felt wasn't fear or concern. It was awe at the sheer scale of American logistics, the ability to transport an entire mobile command center halfway around the world and set it up with military precision in a matter of days. The price of protection: understanding presidential security. To truly comprehend why Trump's Israel visit generated such attention, we need to understand the broader context of presidential security and the unique threats facing the 47th president. The United States Secret Service, operating under the Department of Homeland Security with a budget of $3.2 billion for fiscal year 2025, represents the gold standard in executive protection worldwide. But even by these elevated standards, Trump's security requirements are exceptional. Let's start with the basics of what protecting an American president actually entails. Under Title 18 U.S.C. paragraph 3056, the Secret Service is mandated to protect not just the sitting president, but a constellation of individuals: the vice president, their immediate families, former presidents and their spouses, for life unless they remarry, children of former presidents under 16, visiting foreign heads of state, and major presidential candidates within 120 days of a general election. As of July 2024, the Secret Service was responsible for protecting 36 individuals, a number that fluctuates during election cycles. But here's where Trump's situation diverges from the norm. Even as a former president between 2021 and 2024, his protection detail was far from standard. According to author Ronald Kessler, who has written extensively about the Secret Service, a typical former president receives 80-100 agents, significantly fewer than the approximately 300 agents assigned to a sitting president. However, Trump's detail was consistently larger than typical former presidents due to ongoing threats, surveillance, a situation that would dramatically escalate after 2 assassination attempts in 2024. The first attempt came on July 13, 2024, at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks managed to position himself on an unsecured rooftop approximately 400 feet from the stage, armed with an AR-15 rifle. He fired 8 shots, one of which grazed Trump's ear, while others struck 3 attendees, killing Corey Comparatore and critically wounding 2 others. Secret Service counter-snipers eliminated the shooter, but the damage was done. Not to Trump's campaign, which if anything gained momentum, but to the reputation of the Secret Service itself. The failure to secure that rooftop, despite advance warnings, led to the resignation of Director Kimberly Cheatle on July 23, 2024, and sparked a comprehensive review by an independent panel appointed by the Department of Homeland Security. The panel's findings were damning. They described a do more with less culture that had compromised security standards, inadequate communication systems, and a failure to properly coordinate with local law enforcement who had spotted crooks before the shooting began. Just 2 months later, on September 15, 2024, at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida, 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh attempted a second assassination. Routh had hidden in the shrubbery with an SKS rifle for approximately 12 hours, positioned about 400 yards from where Trump was playing golf. This time, a Secret Service agent spotted the rifle barrel protruding from the bushes and engaged, forcing Routh to flee before he could fire at the president. Routh was arrested shortly after and subsequently convicted in September 2025 on all counts, facing a life sentence to be handed down in December 2025. These weren't the only threats. Intelligence revealed Iranian plots to assassinate Trump, linked to the US killing of Qasem Soleimani in 2020. The FBI reported over 2,000 daily threats against Trump in the months following these attempts, representing a 500% spike compared to previous periods. This threat environment necessitated not just more agents, but a fundamental reimagining of how protection could be delivered. The response came in the form of the Enhanced Presidential Security Act, passed by Congress on September 20, 2024, and signed into law on October 1, 2024. This legislation mandated equal protection standards for sitting presidents, vice presidents, and major presidential candidates, effectively ensuring that Trump's detail would match that of President Biden's during the campaign. By late 2024, Trump's security entourage had swelled to include counter-sniper teams, counter-assault units, advanced drone surveillance systems, and magnetometer screening at all events. But legislation alone couldn't address the fundamental resource constraints facing the Secret Service. The agency's staffing in protective operations had actually declined from 4,027 personnel a decade earlier to 3,671 by 2024, even as the threat environment had grown exponentially more complex. Michael Matranga, a 12-year Secret Service veteran, explained that Trump's detail during the campaign included not just the standard shift details of close protection officers, but additional specialized teams, counter-snipers trained to identify and neutralize long-range threats, counter-assault teams equipped with automatic weapons for rapid response, and counter-surveillance teams using advanced technology to detect and track potential attackers. Acting Director Ronald Rowe testified before Congress in September 2024 that changes were being implemented rapidly: expanded use of drones for area reconnaissance, improved communication systems to prevent the radio failures that plagued the Butler rally, and increased agent numbers at all Trump events. By the time of the Israel visit in October 2025, Trump's protection had reached what Rowe described as the highest level, matching or exceeding what he received during his first term as president. The costs of this protection are staggering and largely borne by American taxpayers. The Secret Service's total budget for fiscal year 2024 was $3.1 billion, representing a 9% increase from the previous year, with approximately $1.2 billion allocated specifically to protective operations. Trump's share of this is estimated at $600 to $700 million annually, though this figure excludes local law enforcement costs that are typically reimbursed by the federal government, often only partially and after lengthy bureaucratic processes. Consider Palm Beach County, Florida, home to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, which has become his primary residence and what he calls the Winter White House. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office reported overtime costs of $38.6 million between July 2024 and September 2025 for providing perimeter security and traffic control during Trump's visits. Just in the 3-month period from July to September 2024, the county spent $7.4 million on Trump-related security. These costs don't include the Secret Service's own expenditures, such as the $1.4 million in contracts with Arcus Group for additional perimeter security at Mar-a-Lago between between August 2024 and February 2025. Travel costs add another substantial layer. Each trip Trump makes to Mar-a-Lago costs approximately $1 million, and he spent 21 days there in his first 100 days back in office. Operating Air Force One costs approximately $200,000 per hour, making even short flights extraordinarily expensive. The C-17 Globemaster cargo planes that transport the presidential motorcade cost around $400,000 per flight, and for international trips like the Israel visit, multiple planes are needed. Then there are the unique costs associated with Trump's properties. Unlike previous presidents who typically visited government-owned facilities like Camp David or military bases, Trump prefers his own commercial properties. This creates logistical and ethical complications. The Secret Service must rent space at Trump properties to station agents, essentially funneling taxpayer money into Trump's businesses. During his first term from 2017 to 2021, Secret Service expenditures at Trump properties exceeded $1 million, though exact figures remain difficult to verify due to the private nature of the Trump organization's financial records. The equipment itself represents a massive capital investment. The presidential limousine fleet, with each beast costing $1.5 million, and the overall research and development program totaling $15 million, is just the tip of the iceberg. The complete presidential transportation package includes Marine One helicopters. The new VH-92A Patriots cost approximately $7 million each. Air Force One, the current VC-25A fleet, is valued at over $1 billion in amortized costs, and countless support vehicles and equipment. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of Trump's security costs relates to his family. The Secret Service is required to protect not just the president, but his immediate family members. During Trump's first term, protection for his adult children who served in White House roles cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars, including $396,000 for Donald Trump Jr.'s trips in 2021 alone. His daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner, who both served as senior advisors, required full Secret Service details for their official duties and personal travel. The question inevitably arises, is it worth it? Ronald Kessler has noted that the entire Secret Service budget is equivalent to the cost of a single stealth bomber, a perspective that reframes these seemingly astronomical costs as relatively modest in the context of national security. After all, the assassination of a sitting president would trigger not just a constitutional crisis, but could potentially destabilize global markets, trigger international conflicts, and undermine faith in American democratic institutions. From this perspective, spending $1 billion annually to prevent such an outcome seems almost reasonable. Yet critics argue that Trump's frequent travel to his own properties, his large-scale rallies, and his family's extensive security needs represent an unnecessary burden on taxpayers. Comparisons to previous presidents are inevitable. President Obama's 8-year travel costs totaled approximately $97 million, while Trump's first-term travel exceeded this figure significantly, though exact comparisons are complicated by different threat levels and Secret Service policies that evolved after the 2024 assassination attempts. The Secret Service's 2025 strategic plan acknowledges these challenges explicitly, calling for expanded recruitment, improved technology integration, and better coordination with partner agencies. Following the Butler shooting, applications to join the Secret Service surged by 200%, with over 22,000 applicants by May 2025, suggesting that public attention to the agency's failures may paradoxically strengthen it by attracting new talent. Power, prestige, and the price of the presidency. The spectacle in Israel wasn't just about security, it was about power projection, diplomatic signaling, and the unique position the United States occupies in global affairs. To understand why Israeli leaders were shocked by Trump's escort, we need to zoom out and compare American presidential security to what other nations, including Israel, provide for their leaders. Israel's approach to leader protection, managed primarily by Shin Bet, also known as the Israel Security Agency or Shabak, is sophisticated but operates at a fundamentally different scale than American presidential security. Shin Bet employs an estimated 5,000–6,000 personnel across all its operations, with approximately 1,000 dedicated to protective security. This compares to the U.S. Secret Service's 8,300 personnel, with 3,671 in protective operations. The budget differential is even more striking. Shin Bet's budget, combined with Mossad's, reached approximately $2.4 billion by 2018, with roughly half allocated to protective operations. Call it $1.2 $2 billion. The U.S. Secret Service's protective operations budget alone exceeds this figure. When you consider that Israel's population is approximately 9 million people compared to America's 335 million, Israel actually spends proportionally more per capita on leader protection, but the absolute scale of American operations dwarfs Israel's capabilities. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving leader, receives protection from 5,100 agents in rotating shifts, significantly fewer than the 300 agents assigned to President Trump. The costs for protecting Netanyahu and his family from 2018 to 2023 totaled approximately NIS $31.5 million, about $8.5 million, a fraction of what American taxpayers spend annually on presidential security. Israeli protective services employ many of the same technologies and tactics as their American counterparts: armored vehicles, modified Mercedes-Benz with ballistic glass, drone surveillance, advanced biometric screening, and elite agents trained in Krav Maga and close-quarters combat. In fact, Israeli security training has influenced American practices, with exchanges between the Secret Service and Shin Bet occurring regularly. However, the scale is completely different. When Netanyahu travels abroad, his security detail is substantial, but nowhere near the logistical operation Trump deployed for his Israel visit. Israel doesn't airlift entire motorcades overseas. They typically rely more heavily on host nation security arrangements, supplemented by a smaller contingent of Israeli agents. A 2016 incident in New York captured this difference perfectly. When Netanyahu needed to use the restroom at a restaurant, his security detail of approximately 20 agents cleared the area, wearing masks to obscure their identities for operational security. This was considered exceptional and drew media attention. For Trump, having 20 agents would represent a skeleton crew, barely adequate for a low-key domestic event. The Israel visit highlighted these differences in stark terms. When those C-5 Galaxy cargo planes landed with Trump's complete motorcade, Israeli security personnel were witnessing capabilities that even their sophisticated services couldn't replicate. The Joint Operations Center set up in Kiryat Gat, the 200 U.S. personnel who remained after Trump's departure as watchers to monitor the ceasefire, the ability to shut down Israeli airspace for 8 hours. These weren't just security measures, they were demonstrations of American power and reach. But let's not forget the broader context that gave this visit such symbolic weight. In March 2025 alone, the US expedited $4 billion in military aid, and another $675 million was fast-tracked shortly after. The optics were impossible to ignore. Here was an American president arriving with a security apparatus that cost more for a single visit than many nations spend on their entire annual defense budgets, in a country that receives more American aid than any other, at a moment when that aid had reached historic levels. Pro-Trump accounts celebrated it as a display of American strength and commitment to Israel. Critics saw it as a stark illustration of how US taxpayer money flows to both support Israel militarily and protect American leaders who visit the region. The contrast becomes even sharper when you examine Trump's personal wealth and lifestyle alongside these security expenditures. Trump's net worth, estimated at approximately $7.3 billion as of September 2025, places him among the wealthiest presidents in American history. This fortune has been built through a combination of inherited wealth, approximately $413 million, adjusted from his father, Fred Trump's real estate empire. Real estate holdings now worth $1.2 to $2.5 billion. His stake in Trump Media and Technology Group valued at $2.1 to $2.6 billion, and cryptocurrency holdings that surged to approximately $2.9 billion in 2025. Trump's lifestyle reflects this wealth in ways that blur the lines between personal luxury and presidential perks. His primary residence, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, was purchased in 1985 for $10 million and is now valued at approximately $292 million. The 126-room mansion features gilded ballrooms, disputed artwork including claimed Picasso and Vermeer paintings valued at $20 to $30 million, and operates as a private club where membership costs $150,000 in initiation fees alone. In 2024, the property generated $66 million in profit from events and golf operations, making it both a residence and a business venture that benefits from its status as the Winter White House. His transportation preferences are equally lavish. Trump Force One, his personal Boeing 757-200, was purchased in 2011 from Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen for approximately $100 million, with an additional $10 million spent on customization, including gold-plated fixtures, leather seats, and the Trump family crest. While this aircraft served him well during campaigns, in May 2020, 2025, Qatar gifted Trump a Boeing 747-8 valued at approximately $400 million, which the administration formally accepted for eventual conversion into Air Force One. This gift alone would have covered the entire cost of Trump's Israel visit several times over, raising ethical questions that critics were quick to highlight. His car collection, valued at approximately $2 to $3 million, includes a 2015 Rolls-Royce Phantom $450,000, a Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren worth $455,000, and a 1997 Lamborghini Diablo VT worth $299,000. His yacht history is even more extravagant. He once owned the Trump Princess, an 86-meter Bonetti that he purchased in 1987 for $29 million and spent $10 million refitting, complete with a helipad, cinema, and accommodations for 22 guests and 52 crew. But here's where the story gets truly interesting. The advantages of being president extend far beyond security. The office itself provides access, influence, and opportunities that money literally cannot buy. Trump's net worth increased by approximately $3 billion during his first year back in office, driven primarily by cryptocurrency ventures that generated $550 million in revenue post-election and foreign licensing deals worth an estimated $400 million for Trump-branded properties in the Persian Gulf and Vietnam. The presidency provides a platform for deal-making that dwarfs any private sector opportunity. Consider the Abraham Accords, which Trump brokered during his first term and has worked to expand. These agreements normalize relations between Israel and several Arab nations, facilitating business opportunities worth billions of dollars across the region. While Trump himself cannot directly profit from these deals while in office, in theory, his family's business interests and his post-presidential prospects create obvious incentive structures that blur ethical lines. The Saudi arms deal alone, announced during Trump's May 2025 visit to Riyadh, exceeded $150 billion. Qatar's gift of the 747-8, while justified as facilitating presidential travel, also strengthened diplomatic ties that could benefit Trump-branded properties in Doha. Indonesia opened a Trump-branded golf course in March 2025, with 2 more projects in development. Vietnam's Hanoi resort deal added another $500 million in potential licensing fees. The security apparatus itself becomes a tool of soft power and deal-making. When Trump arrived in Israel with that overwhelming show of force, he wasn't just being protected, he was demonstrating American commitment to Israeli security in the most visceral way possible. His 20-minute Knesset address praised Israel's use of American weapons and even suggested Netanyahu should receive a pardon for his corruption charges, moves that critics called inappropriate, but which Trump's supporters saw as unwavering loyalty to a key ally. Yet this raises profound questions about cost, equity, and priorities. The United States spends more on protecting one person, the president, than most nations spend on their entire governments. The $1+ billion annual price tag for presidential security could fund approximately 20,000 teacher salaries, build hundreds of schools, or provide healthcare to hundreds of thousands of uninsured Americans. The $20 to $50 million spent on the Israel visit alone could address significant local needs in communities across America. Defenders argue that this is a false equivalency, that the security of the president is a constitutional imperative, not a discretionary spending item to be compared against social programs. They point out that the entire Secret Service budget is equivalent to approximately 1 stealth bomber, a fraction of the overall defense budget. From this perspective, ensuring continuity of government and protecting the commander-in-chief is not just justified, but essential to national security and global stability. The historical context supports this view. American presidents face genuine, persistent threats. 4 presidents have been assassinated: Lincoln, 1865, Garfield, 1881, McKinley, 1901, and Kennedy, 1963. There have been at least 13 other documented assassination attempts, including Theodore Roosevelt being shot during his 1912 campaign. He survived and famously finished his speech. Harry Truman narrowly escaping Puerto Rican nationalists in 1951. 1 Secret Service agent was killed in that attack. Gerald Ford surviving 2 separate attempts in 1975, and Ronald Reagan being shot in 1981. A Secret Service agent took a bullet meant for the president. The threats have evolved with technology. Modern presidents face cyber threats, drone attacks, chemical and biological weapons, and sophisticated international plots that require constant vigilance and adaptation. Trump himself survived 2 assassination attempts in 2024, and intelligence indicates ongoing Iranian plots to target him, threats that justify the extraordinary security measures we've discussed. What the Israel visit ultimately revealed wasn't just the price of protecting a president, but the broader dynamics of American power in the 21st century. The shock that Israeli leaders experienced wasn't fear or concern, it was a recognition recognition of the vast gulf between American capabilities and those of even close allies. Israel, despite being a regional military superpower, depends fundamentally on American support, and that October Day in 2025 made this dependence visible in ways that no amount of diplomatic rhetoric could obscure. The spectacle served multiple purposes simultaneously. It protected Trump from genuine threats in a volatile region. It demonstrated American technological and logistical superiority. It signaled commitment to Israeli security. It projected power to adversaries throughout the Middle East. And, perhaps most importantly for Trump personally, it provided imagery and narrative that reinforced his brand as a strong leader capable of commanding respect on the world stage. Critics on social media were quick to point out the contradictions. Trump, who campaigned against government waste, presiding over security expenditures that exceed the GDP of small nations. Supporters celebrated it as evidence of American strength and a necessary price for protecting democracy's most important office. Both perspectives contain truth. As we look ahead, these questions will only become more pressing. The Secret Service's 2025 strategic plan acknowledges the need for expanded recruitment, better technology, and enhanced coordination. Threats continue to evolve, with artificial intelligence enabling deepfakes and misinformation campaigns, drones becoming more sophisticated and accessible, and cyber vulnerabilities multiplying. The price of protection will inevitably rise. The question is whether American taxpayers will continue to accept these costs without demanding greater transparency, accountability, and perhaps limits on how presidents use the security apparatus for personal benefit. Trump's frequent visits to his own properties, which benefit financially from Secret Service presence, represent just one example of how personal and public interests can become entangled. Enjoying the content? Make sure to check out the suggested videos by clicking the cards on your screen.